I would also like to just mention that I think one of the really interesting and exciting topics presented at this meeting is neuroinflammation and how the immune system plays a role in Alzheimer's. I think the genetics are very crystal clear now. GWAS data shows that different immune genes are linked to different immune genes are linked to increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. And so there have been a number of genes that have been shown to have variants called polymorphisms. So just a slight change in the gene actually increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease. And this is late onset, sporadic, just run-of-the-mill regular Alzheimer's disease, not the early onset form necessarily. So we're starting to understand better now how those genes actually contribute to Alzheimer's disease. And it's not that they necessarily cause it, but they do increase the risk. And we have some data showing that a part of the immune system that's used to fight infection, called the complement system, is also very important for the response, the immune response to plaques in the brain, and probably also to tangles, and that actually helps drive the downstream neurodegeneration. So there's a long, as Randy Bateman showed this morning, there's a long period of time before somebody shows clinical symptoms of dementia. So if the plaques are starting way back here, and then you start seeing tau changes, somewhere in there's neuroinflammation. And that inflammation may include, for example, the glial response to plaques. At that point, there are many other changes that are occurring, such as cytokines and pro-inflammatory molecules released by different glial cells. Those molecules then may have an effect on the synapses and on the neurons. In our case, we see that complement actually plays a detrimental role for synapses and helps prune back synapses, which Beth Stevens' group had shown is very important during the development of the brain. We all start with way too many synapses, and with activity, with use of the brain, the stronger synapses are sort of cemented in place, while the weaker ones are pruned back, and the complement and microglia play a role in that. And we think that that's also the case with aging and Alzheimer's disease. And so there may be different triggers. This may be a neurodegeneration mechanism, not specific for Alzheimer's, but different triggers. So beta amyloid, for example, in Alzheimer's disease may be the trigger there that then sets up this immune response, which ultimately will lead to the synapse loss and neuron loss that ultimately then, that 15 or 20 years later, ends up in memory loss and other clinical features of Alzheimer's disease.